timing of the launch of her new wine, which is so basic, and just become a housewife already.
She did this launch with like limited inventory so that it would look like it was sold out, or they just said it was.
I literally feel my throat closing. Orange marmalade tastes like crap. I actually feel sick.
Meghan Markle thought she'd built the next big lifestyle empire. Sleek packaging, premium prices, products that looked absolutely perfect online. But here's the thing. Within weeks, customers started sending everything back. Some boxes came back sealed, never even opened. And one product? It became the symbol of the entire disaster. A candle that literally couldn't burn. No wick. Nothing. This is the story of how a duchess's dream brand turned into one of the messiest product launches in recent memory. And trust me, it gets way worse. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Because what I'm about to show you is wild. So, American Riviera Orchard finally launched, and people were genuinely excited. Meghan had been building up to this for months with teaser videos and that whole aesthetic of soft mornings and elegant living. The website went live with raspberry spreads, strawberry jam, orange marmalade, fancy tea blends, cookie mix, decorative flower sprinkles, and candles. The prices: $36 for a jar of spread, $64 for a single candle. But listen, people paid it anyway, because the marketing was that good. Every product shot looked incredibly polished, soft beige tones, elegant script labels, everything wrapped in tissue paper and styled like something from a high-end boutique. The brand promised this elevated everyday experience. It looked like Goop, but make it royal adjacent. People wanted those jars on their kitchen counter. The concept worked, the marketing worked, everything looked completely flawless online. But here's where it all started falling apart. The moment those boxes showed up, the illusion cracked hard. Customers weren't just expecting a decent product, they were expecting luxury. And what they got instead? Confusion, disappointment. The tissue paper was thin, standard stuff from any regular package. Labels weren't straight, some were crooked, others had wrinkles or air bubbles. The jars felt light and ordinary, like something you'd grab off a grocery store shelf without thinking twice. That beige aesthetic looked flat and lifeless in person. It wasn't refined minimalism, it just looked cheap. Then people started opening the products. The raspberry spread was runny and thin, almost pourable. The cookie mix required ingredients people thought would be included. The tea smelled strong but tasted weak when brewed. And those decorative flower sprinkles, they showed up looking nothing like the photos. Dried out, brittle, some were brown or faded.
She will pivot, even if it's ridiculous, even if it is something that is cringe, like...
People compared them to potpourri from a craft store. One person said, "This looks like something I'd give my hamster." That clip went everywhere. A lot of people didn't even need to taste anything to know something was wrong. They opened the boxes, looked at what they got, and immediately felt that disconnect. This wasn't matching the price. This wasn't matching the promise. The gap between what it looked like online and what showed up in their hands was massive. People started posting their unboxing experiences, sharing photos, comparing notes. Within days, the narrative shifted. This wasn't a successful luxury launch. This was people realizing they'd paid premium prices for products that felt anything but premium. So the reviews started rolling in, and Meghan's team probably expected the usual mix. Some good, some bad, nothing major. But what actually happened? Returns. A lot of them. At first, manageable. Then the numbers started climbing. They doubled within days, then tripled. The customer service inbox went from a few emails to completely flooded. And this is where it gets really strange. Most of these products were coming back sealed, completely unopened. The jars still had their safety seals intact. Nothing had been touched. Think about that. People weren't even trying the products before sending them back. They were opening the shipping box, looking at what they received, and immediately deciding to return it. That's brutal. When someone returns a product after using it, okay, that's a taste preference thing. But when people are sending stuff back based purely on first impression, that means the packaging alone was enough to make them lose confidence in the entire purchase. For a brand positioning itself as premium, that's devastating. The unboxing experience is supposed to justify the cost. But these customers felt like they'd been overcharged. And it wasn't just a few isolated cases. This was becoming a pattern. People on social media started sharing their return stories. The momentum built fast. What started as individual disappointments turned into this collective realization that something was seriously off. But the situation got even worse. Some jars came back unsealed. The vacuum seal that's supposed to keep preserves fresh was missing, broken, or never there. That's not just disappointing, that's a safety concern. Labels were crooked, wrinkled, peeling off at the corners. The spreads showed separation, that curdled appearance that makes you wonder if products are even fresh. The cookie mix had confusing instructions and measurements that didn't work. The numbers kept climbing. Within the first week, returns hit a level that would normally take months to reach.
I wonder if do you think she actually put the sticker on? You think she put poison in this because she knew it was mine?
Her kids help.
By the second week, they'd surpassed what most brands see in an entire product cycle. Every day brought more refund requests, more sealed jars coming back. The turnaround time between delivery and return was sometimes less than 24 hours. People were getting their orders and requesting refunds the same day. What really caught the team off guard was the speed. Product launches usually have a grace period. People buy, they try things, they form opinions gradually. But this was immediate rejection. That kind of rapid-fire rejection doesn't just hurt sales, it sends a message. The disconnect between promise and reality was so massive that people didn't even want to give the brand a chance. And for a brand that was supposed to be Meghan's fresh start, this was the exact opposite of what she needed. With all these returns flooding in, Meghan's team was already in crisis mode. But then something made everything exponentially worse. One customer posted a video that went absolutely everywhere. She'd ordered one of the candles, the $64 one that was supposed to be the centerpiece. She opened it, pulled off the lid, and just stared. No wick. The candle had no wick. That video blew up instantly. Within hours, hundreds of thousands of views. But what made it catastrophic? She wasn't the only one. Other customers started coming forward with the same problem. Multiple people in different states receiving candles with no wicks, all showing the same thing, a luxury candle that couldn't burn. Look, you can explain away a lot of product defects, a crooked label, someone wasn't paying attention, a runny spread. Maybe the recipe needs tweaking, even dried out flowers, you could argue they're natural products. But a candle with no wick? That's not a defect. That's a product that fundamentally doesn't work. The entire purpose of a candle is to burn. $64 worth of useless wax. The symbolism was devastating. The wickless candle became the perfect representation of everything wrong with the brand. It looked good in photos, the jar was nice, the beige aesthetic was on point. But the moment you tried to use it, you realized it was hollow. All presentation, no substance. And that's exactly how people were starting to feel about the entire brand. Social media ran with it immediately. Memes everywhere, people making jokes about paying $64 for a jar of wax. This one was impossible to spin. You can't put a positive angle on a candle that can't light. Inside Meghan's team, complete panic. Emergency meetings, frantic emails to factories demanding to know how this happened.
So for well over a year, it has been well known that Meghan Markle was copying Flamingo Estate in Great.
These candles hadn't been inspected properly before shipping. The factory had been rushing to meet deadlines. Quality control wasn't thorough. They were doing spot checks, assuming the rest were fine. They weren't. The factory admitted they'd cut corners, prioritized speed over quality. In the rush, entire batches went out without anyone verifying they had wicks. For Meghan, this was crushing. She'd built her image on attention to detail. Her whole brand was supposed to reflect that meticulousness. And now, the most visible product failure was literally a missing component. The most basic part of a candle. Gone. The wickless candle made people question everything else. If something that obvious could slip through, what else had they missed? Were the food products actually safe? Were the ingredients really what the labels claimed? Once that doubt gets planted, it spreads fast. The candle wasn't even the most returned item numerically, but it became the face of the failure because it was so visually clear, so undeniably wrong. It was the perfect symbol of a brand that looked premium but couldn't deliver on the most basic level. Every time someone searched for the brand name, that wickless candle video came up. It became the defining image of American Riviera orchard. A candle that couldn't burn had burned the brand instead. At this point, Meghan's team knew they had a serious problem. They needed answers, so they launched a full internal review. And what they discovered was way worse than anyone expected. The review started with the basics, going through batches, checking production records, examining returned products. They brought in every jar, every candle, every tin that customers had sent back. Pretty quickly, a pattern emerged. This wasn't just a few isolated mistakes. This was systematic failure across multiple product lines. The vacuum seals on the jars, that was the first problem they documented. Multiple batches had shipped without proper seals. Some jars had weak seals that broke during shipping. Others had no seal at all. That's not just a quality issue. That's a safety issue. When you're selling food products, proper sealing isn't negotiable. The fill levels were another problem. They were underfilled. Some jars were missing almost an ounce of product. When you're charging $36 for a jar, people expect to get exactly what they paid for. Underfilling sends the message that you're cutting corners. The label situation was even more widespread. Entire batches had gone out with labels that were wrinkled.
Well, the reviews are in, and they are a bit mixed. Now, some have started calling it scam jam on social media, while others have
Misaligned or applied with air bubbles. The team pulled production footage and watched workers moving fast, slapping labels on jars without checking alignment. Speed over precision, volume over quality. When they tested the tea blends, more problems showed up. Some batches were strong, properly balanced. Others were weak, barely any flavor. The blend ratios weren't standardized. Different batches had different proportions, which meant the same product tasted different depending on when you bought it. Those decorative flowers, many were dried to the point of being brittle. Colors had faded. Some had started to brown before they'd even been packaged. They were either low quality to begin with or stored improperly. Or both. The production timeline told its own story. They'd rushed everything. The launch date had been set based on marketing goals, not production readiness. The factories were given tight deadlines, so they cut corners, they skipped steps, quality control checkpoints that should have caught these issues, skipped or done so quickly they were meaningless. Nobody was checking every product before it shipped. The oversight simply wasn't there. Communication between different parts of the operation was a mess. The people packaging weren't talking to quality control. The people handling shipping weren't aware of issues flagged earlier. Everyone assumed someone else was checking. Nobody actually was. When the review team started asking pointed questions, people at the factories admitted the truth. Yeah, they'd cut corners. Yeah, they'd rushed. Yeah, they knew quality wasn't where it needed to be. But they'd been under pressure to hit deadlines. For Meghan, reading this review was crushing. She'd built her entire public image on being detail-oriented, and now she was looking at a report that proved the opposite. Her brand had launched with products that were rushed, inconsistent, and nowhere near the premium quality she'd promised. The review ended with a recommendation no founder wants to hear. Pause production, pull everything. Reassess the entire operation from top to bottom. Don't launch anything else until you can guarantee it meets the standards you're claiming to represent. But the internal review did one important thing. It removed any doubt about why the brand was failing. This wasn't bad luck. This was simple, straightforward failure to deliver a quality product. The brand had promised premium, delivered mediocre, and charged luxury prices anyway. While Meghan's team was dealing with the internal chaos, another problem was quietly developing. The retailers were backing away. And the way they did it was almost worse than outright rejection.
And I see that she's put 3 jams together and she's calling it a pack. And she's literally selling it for like almost...
Because retailers don't panic. They don't send angry emails. They just go quiet. And that silence, that's deadly for a brand. At the beginning, retailer interest was strong. Stores wanted to carry American Riviera Orchard. The name recognition was valuable. Several retailers had reached out expressing interest. Some had started conversations about placement, promotional opportunities, potentially featuring the brand in their marketing. The emails back then came quickly. Phone calls ended with excitement. There was genuine enthusiasm. Retailers saw an opportunity, a celebrity lifestyle brand with built-in interest. On paper, it looked like a smart bet. But after the launch started going sideways, everything changed. Those quick email responses started taking longer. A day, then 2 days, then a week. When responses did come, they were different, shorter, more cautious. The enthusiasm was gone, replaced by this careful, non-committal tone. Phone calls became harder to schedule. Meetings got pushed back. When conversations did happen, they were awkward. You could hear the hesitation, the vague responses to direct questions. Nobody wanted to say no outright, but nobody wanted to commit either. Reorder discussions that had been moving forward suddenly hit a wall. Everything went into this weird holding pattern. We'll circle back on that. Let's revisit this in a few weeks. All code for we're not moving forward, but we're not going to tell you that directly. Potential partnerships started evaporating overnight. 1 week there'd be interest, the next week radio silence. Those opportunities just disappeared without explanation. And that's how you know it's bad. When people don't even bother to officially say no, they just ghost you. Because here's what every retailer was seeing. The returns piling up, the social media mockery, the wickless candle story, the quality complaints, and most importantly, they were seeing the numbers. Return rates, way too high. Customer satisfaction tanking. That's not data you can ignore. From a retailer's perspective, the math was simple. American Riviera Orchard had high prices, rising return rates, inconsistent quality, and a reputation getting worse by the day. That's not just a risk. That's a guaranteed problem sitting on your shelf, taking up space that a different product could occupy. Avoidance is way more dangerous than outright rejection. When a retailer says no, at least you know where you stand. But avoidance? That's them making the decision without telling you. It's professional ghosting, and it stings.
Meghan Markle is gearing up to launch her brand. As ever, the products, they are coming out, guys. And she could not be doing a worse job of promoting it.
Meghan's team tried to combat it. They reached out more frequently, sent follow-up emails highlighting the things going right, the initial sellout numbers, the brand recognition. But it didn't work because retailers weren't making decisions based on potential anymore. They were making decisions based on reality. And the reality was messy. The ones who'd already placed small initial orders started getting cautious about reordering. They just quietly decided not to restock. When Meghan's team would ask about future orders, they'd get that same non-committal response. We'll see how it goes. Never a yes, never quite a no, just limbo. What made it worse was timing. This brand was supposed to have momentum. But American Riviera Orchard couldn't expand because nobody wanted to take it on. Instead of growing, the brand was contracting before it even had a chance to establish itself. First impressions in retail are incredibly hard to shake. Once a brand gets labeled as risky, that reputation sticks. And American Riviera Orchard had managed to earn that label within weeks. For a brand that needed retail partnerships to succeed at scale, this quiet rejection was a death sentence. That door was closing fast. So we've talked about the product failures, the quality issues, the returns. But there's another layer, the branding itself. Because Meghan built an entire aesthetic around American Riviera Orchard, meant to communicate luxury and sophistication. Except that aesthetic became part of the problem. The branding didn't just fail to save the products, it made the disappointment worse. The whole vibe was beige minimalism. Soft, neutral tones, simple packaging, scripted lettering, inspirational phrases. And on Instagram with professional lighting and styling, it worked. It looked beautiful, but minimalism has a problem. It only works when the execution is flawless. When you strip everything down to basics, every tiny imperfection becomes glaring. There's nowhere to hide mistakes. And American Riviera Orchard's execution was nowhere near flawless. When customers opened their packages and actually held these products, the beige aesthetic felt completely different in person. It didn't feel refined or luxurious. It felt flat, empty. The labels looked basic. The tissue paper felt thin. The jars came across as plain, not charmingly simple, just plain. The difference between refined minimalism and cheap minimalism is razor thin. It all comes down to quality of materials and precision of execution.
The most disastrous celebrity product launch in history. Insiders are revealing to me
real luxury minimalism uses premium materials that feel expensive even without decoration. But when the materials are standard and the execution is sloppy, minimalism stops looking intentional and starts looking like cost cutting. American Riviera Orchard fell on the wrong side of that line. The packaging felt light. The labels were printed on regular stock. The tissue paper had no weight. The jars were standard commercial glass. When you're paying $36 for jam, you expect the packaging to feel premium in your hands. These products didn't deliver that feeling. And then there were the phrases, "With love, Meghan," poetic fragments about savoring moments and elevating the everyday. Except when the products don't live up to the promise, those phrases start feeling hollow, almost manipulative. Like they're trying to convince you something is special when your actual experience tells you otherwise. Customers felt this disconnect immediately. The branding was telling them one story. This is luxurious, elevated, worth the premium price. But the products were telling a completely different story. This is ordinary, rushed, not what you paid for. And when those two narratives clash, people feel deceived. That feeling makes them even less likely to give the brand another chance. The scripted lettering became another point of criticism. That handwritten style font showed up on everything. It was supposed to add a personal touch, but when people kept seeing it everywhere, it started feeling less personal and more like a design crutch. Some people noticed the lowercase e in the logo styling. It looked unfinished to a lot of people, like a typo that made it through. The photos on the website and social media told yet another story. Everything was styled within an inch of its life. Perfect lighting, carefully arranged compositions. Customers would see these images and feel excited about the purchase. Then the reality arrived and looked nothing like the photos. The gap here was unusually wide. People felt genuinely misled. The price point made everything worse. If these products had been mid-range priced, $15 jam instead of $36, $30 candles instead of $64, people would have been more forgiving. But once you cross into premium pricing territory, the standards change completely. You're buying an experience, a feeling, a level of quality that justifies the expense. American Riviera Orchard failed at almost every touch point. And people don't mind paying premium prices when they're getting premium value. That's why brands like Goop succeed.
Meghan Markle, as you know, she's launched her little show, whatever, Ever After.
But when the premium price feels disconnected from actual value, when people feel like they overpaid for something ordinary, dressed up in nice packaging, that's when the backlash happens. This is the branding trap in action. Meghan invested heavily in creating an aesthetic that looked good in photos, but she didn't invest enough in making sure that aesthetic translated to the actual customer experience. She focused on how things appeared rather than how they felt. The branding didn't elevate the products. It exposed them. So we've covered the quality failures, the wickless candles, the internal chaos, the retailers backing away, the branding problems. But ultimately, none of that matters as much as what the customers decided. Because in the lifestyle brand space, customers are the final judges. They decide whether a brand lives or dies. And with American Riviera Orchard, they made their decision pretty quickly. They moved on. The return boxes just kept coming. Week after week, packages arriving back at the warehouse, each one representing another disappointed customer, another failed transaction. Some of these returns came back in their original packaging, carefully repacked like the customer felt bad about sending them back. Others came back more hastily packed, like the person just wanted to get rid of them and move on. But they all told the same story. This didn't work. This wasn't what they signed up for. This wasn't worth keeping. What made these returns particularly telling was the notes. Not all of them, but enough to paint a clear picture. Some customers included brief explanations with their returns, not angry rants, not harsh criticisms, just simple, honest statements about why they couldn't keep the products. The quality doesn't match the price. This isn't what I expected based on the photos. The jar arrived unsealed. The label was crooked and it just felt cheap. Matter-of-fact observations from people who'd wanted to like these products but couldn't justify keeping them. A few customers wrote longer notes explaining that they'd been excited about the brand, that they'd wanted to support it, that the concept appealed to them, but the execution let them down. They'd opened their orders expecting to feel like they'd treated themselves to something special, and instead, they felt like they'd wasted money. Those notes hit different because they weren't from haters or trolls. They were from people who genuinely wanted American Riviera Orchard.
And her own calligraphy. Liz, would you love to buy Meghan Markle's jam?
I can't even discuss this.
To be good, and we're disappointed that it wasn't. What's interesting is that hardly anyone complained about the concept itself. Nobody said, I don't want fancy jam, or lifestyle brands are stupid, or this whole idea is pointless. The idea of a curated collection of premium kitchen and home products, that works. People buy into that all the time. Plenty of brands succeed in that exact space. So the concept wasn't the problem. The execution was. And that's almost worse because it means there was real potential here that just got completely wasted. People wanted this to work. You could see it in how they talked about their purchases before everything went wrong. Social media posts showing their orders arriving, saying they were excited to try everything, tagging the brand in their photos. There was genuine enthusiasm. Customers were ready to become fans, ready to be repeat buyers, ready to tell their friends about this new brand they'd discovered. That's the dream for any product launch. Built-in excitement from customers who want to love what you're selling. But you can't build a brand on enthusiasm alone. At some point, the products have to deliver. And when they don't, that enthusiasm turns into something else. Disappointment, frustration, a feeling of being let down by something you'd invested hope and money into. And once customers feel that way, they don't usually come back. They might not trash the brand publicly. They might not leave scathing reviews. They just quietly decide it's not for them and move on to something else. The sold out announcements became a weird point of contention. Meghan's team would post that certain products had sold out, framing it as a success. And technically, if you make 50 units of something and sell 50 units, that is selling out. But customers started questioning those claims. How many units actually sold? Was it 50? Was it 500? Was it 5,000? The brand never provided actual numbers. So sold out became meaningless. It could mean the product was wildly popular, or it could mean they'd only made a tiny batch to create artificial scarcity and generate headlines. People called this out. Congrats on selling out, but how many did you actually make? Saying it's sold out means nothing if we don't know the quantity. This feels like manufactured success. And they had a point. In e-commerce, claiming a sellout without backing it up with numbers is a classic move to create hype. It makes the brand look more successful than it might actually be. And when customers already feel misled by the gap between marketing and product quality.
Is Meghan Markle's brand as ever a scam? Because that was what so many people were speculating on, especially as
This kind of vague claim just makes them more skeptical. Some products didn't sell out at all, at least not quickly. The cookie mix, the tea, the decorative flowers, those sat in stock for hours after the launch. People noticed. They were refreshing the website, watching to see what would move and what wouldn't. And when certain items lingered while others supposedly sold out fast, it raised questions. Were the sold out items actually more popular, or did they just have lower inventory to begin with? Were people really clamoring for the products, or was the brand just better at marketing some items than others? The YouTube reviewers who'd received PR packages had a field day with all this. These are people who review products for a living, who understand quality and branding and what makes something worth the price. And most of them were not impressed. They opened their packages on camera, showed the crooked labels, tasted the spreads, and commented on the runny texture, tried to use the products, and documented the problems. Their reviews were honest, sometimes brutally so, and they reached huge audiences. One reviewer opened a candle on camera and discovered it had no wick. That video went viral, as we discussed earlier, but there were others too. Someone comparing the jam to grocery store brands and finding the cheaper option tasted better. Someone pointing out that the packaging looked expensive in photos but felt cheap in person. Someone calculating the actual value versus the price and showing the massive disconnect. These weren't hit pieces. They were straightforward product reviews, but they all reached the same conclusion. This brand isn't delivering what it promises. The commentary wasn't limited to product reviewers. Business analysts started weighing in, using American Riviera Orchard as a case study in what not to do with a celebrity brand launch. Marketing professionals dissected the mistakes. Rushing to market, prioritizing aesthetics over quality, setting prices that the products couldn't justify. It became this teachable moment in real time, with Meghan's brand serving as the cautionary tale. But through all of this, the most damaging voices weren't the critics or the comedians or the business analysts. They were the regular customers who'd spent their own money, received disappointing products, and simply decided the brand wasn't worth their time.
Ever name is really bothering me. I get that she's really proud of her spindly cursive, but this just doesn't look good.
Those are the people brands need to win over. And American Riviera Orchard lost them almost immediately. The customer verdict was clear. not delivered through some dramatic public statement or organized campaign, just delivered through individual decisions made quietly in kitchens and living rooms across the country. People opening boxes, examining products, and deciding whether to keep them or send them back. And overwhelmingly, they sent them back. Or they kept them but vowed not to order again. Or they left reviews warning others to skip it. One customer at a time, the brand was being rejected. This wasn't about people hating Meghan personally. This wasn't about trolls trying to tear down a celebrity. This was about a product that didn't meet expectations, a brand that promised premium but delivered ordinary, an experience that left customers feeling like they'd overpaid for something that wasn't special. And when that's the verdict, when that's what your actual paying customers conclude, there's no spinning it. There's no PR strategy that fixes it. There's only the hard truth that the brand failed where it mattered most. The lifestyle market is crowded and competitive. Customers have options. If your brand doesn't deliver, they'll find one that does, and they won't feel bad about it. They won't give you endless chances to get it right. They'll just move on. That's what happened here. American Riviera Orchard had one shot at a strong launch, one opportunity to turn initial interest into lasting loyalty. And it missed. The customers gave their verdict, and it wasn't the one Meghan had hoped for. So, where does this leave Meghan and American Riviera Orchard? That's the question everyone's asking. Because this isn't just a story about a product launch gone wrong. It's about what happens when someone with massive name recognition, with built-in attention, with every advantage you could ask for in launching a brand, still manages to miss the mark this badly. And now she's sitting at a crossroads, trying to figure out what comes next. Does she double down? Does she take the internal review seriously? Fix every single thing that went wrong, find new suppliers, implement real quality control, and try again? That's one path. It would mean admitting the first attempt failed, which is hard for anyone, but especially hard when you've positioned this brand as your big success story. It would mean eating the cost of all those returns, the damaged reputation, the lost retail relationships. It would mean starting over from a much weaker position than where she began.
Launches and sells out. And when I saw everything sold out yesterday, I literally started getting emotional.
Or does she quietly let it fade? Stop producing new batches? Let the website go dormant? Move on to something else without making a big announcement about it? That's the other path. It's less embarrassing in some ways because you're not admitting defeat. You're just letting something drift away. But it also means all that investment, all that planning, all that effort building the brand, it all just evaporates. And the narrative becomes, Meghan tried to launch a lifestyle brand and it failed. That's not the legacy most people want attached to their business ventures. The truth is, both options are tough. Rebuilding means confronting every mistake head-on and hoping customers will give the brand another chance after this disaster of a first impression. Walking away means accepting that this particular dream didn't work out and finding something else to focus on. Neither one is appealing. But doing nothing, just leaving things in this weird limbo where the brand exists but isn't really functional, that's probably the worst option of all. What's clear from this whole situation is that the lesson isn't complicated. No amount of pretty packaging fixes a product that doesn't deliver. The Instagram aesthetic, the scripted lettering, the beige minimalism, the poetic phrases, none of that matters if the actual product doesn't back it up. Marketing can get people to buy once, but it can't make them stay, and it definitely can't make them come back for more. Luxury isn't something you declare. It's something you earn. You earn it by actually delivering the quality you promise, by making sure every single product that leaves your facility meets the standards you've set, by respecting your customers enough to give them real value for their money, Meghan wanted people to see her brand as luxury, as premium, as elevated, but she wanted them to accept that based on her name and her aesthetic, not based on the products themselves. And that's not how it works. The customers made their choice. They tried the products, compared them to the price, looked at the quality issues, and decided this wasn't for them. They sent things back. They left honest reviews. They warned their friends. They posted their unboxing disappointments. And then they moved on to other brands that actually deliver what they promise. That's the harsh reality of the marketplace. People don't owe you their loyalty. You have to earn it every single time. What really happened here? The product failed on its own. The wickless candles, the runny spreads, the crooked labels, the unsealed jars, the weak tea, the dried out flowers. Those were real problems that real customers experienced after spending real money.
I guess they're going to be selling cookbooks and other, like, she's trying to be that ballerina farm lady who's over here on Instagram. Whoever.
The brand failed because it couldn't deliver what it promised. Simple as that. What makes this story particularly interesting is that the potential was there. The concept worked. The marketing looked good. People were genuinely interested. The initial demand was real. All the pieces were in place for this to succeed. But execution is everything. And the execution fell short at almost every level. Quality control failed. Production rushed, materials were cheap, attention to detail was missing. All the things that needed to be right for a premium brand were wrong. Whether Meghan learns from this matters, not just for American Riviera Orchard, but for whatever she does next. Because if the takeaway is people were unfair to me, or the timing was wrong, or external factors sabotaged the launch, then nothing changes. The same mistakes will get repeated with the next venture. But if the takeaway is we rushed to market before we were ready, and we didn't deliver the quality we charged for, and we prioritized aesthetics over substance, then there's something to build on. There's a path to doing better next time. The market isn't personal. Customers aren't out to get anyone. They just want products that work, that feel worth what they paid, that deliver on their promises. When a brand does that, people support it. When it doesn't, people move on. It's that simple. American Riviera Orchard couldn't deliver, so customers rejected it. Not because they're mean, not because they don't like Meghan, just because the products weren't good enough. So, what's next for the brand? Nobody knows for sure. Maybe there's a relaunch in the future with better quality control and more realistic pricing. Maybe the whole thing just quietly disappears from the internet and becomes a footnote in celebrity business ventures. Maybe Meghan pivots to something completely different. All of those are possible. But one thing's certain, this first chapter didn't go the way anyone planned. The story of American Riviera Orchard is a reminder that in business, execution beats intention every time. Doesn't matter how good your marketing is, how famous you are, how beautiful your branding looks. If the product doesn't deliver, customers won't stick around. And once you lose them, getting them back is 10 times harder than keeping them in the first place. That's the lesson here. Whether anyone learns it, that's what we'll find out next. So, what do you think? Can she turn this around, or is the brand finished? Drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.